Hello and welcome to episode 81 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. It's Thursday, April 30th, 2015. I'm Stephen Seagraves, joined today by Foz Mahmood. Hey, Foz.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Can't complain.
It's just us today as Seth and Rollo are gallivanting somewhere in the world.
Yeah, based on that picture, I think Rollo's having a really hard week.
Really hard week down in Argentina. And I think Seth is in Japan. Having a good time riding some high-speed trains.
Yeah, he's been very quiet.
Yeah. It means he's entertained. It's good.
I mean, how often is Seth quiet?
Hopefully he doesn't listen to this.
Actually, I think he'd be the first to admit that he's right, that I was right.
Now, and we should say, before we get started on the show, you and Seth, I mean, this will probably be released just slightly before the awards, but you and Seth will both be at the Freddy's on Thursday when this is released, April 30th. Right?
That is correct.
In Atlanta at the Delta Flight Museum or Delta History of Flight Museum. I don't know what it's called.
No, the Spirit of Delta is the plane.
It's like it's something about their historic.
Yeah. I'm a little bummed because I actually got an invitation to an event on Wednesday evening as a pre-party, and I will not be able to go.
Are you not going to be in Atlanta in time for it?
No, I literally get in Thursday afternoon because I'm in a work conference all week. So
Gotcha.
It's a little bummed by that, but it is what it is.
I was thinking about coming, but prices are nuts, so I'm just going to skip it, sadly. So.
Yeah. Not even a good mileage redemption?
No, nothing. It's just meh. So I'm sure you guys will probably record a show or something, maybe like a little segment there. So if our listeners are there, be sure and stop by and say hello to Foz and Seth.
Yes.
I'm sure they'll be at the bar, right?
Yes. Or running back and forth to said bar.
I think today we're going to talk a little bit about the Turkish crash landing, United's earnings call, and kind of what they're doing with their fleet, Delta dropping Moscow, and some other capacity cuts around the industry, some long-haul coach improvements, and some priority pass changes. So I guess we should just jump right into this Turkish airplane emergency landing / crash landing that happened at Istanbul's Ataturk airport.
Have you seen the video of this?
I didn't see the video. I saw the pictures, and it was kind of crazy.
If you go to avherald.org.com, I forget which one it is, they actually, I don't know if you've ever been on AV Herald, but they do accident synopses, and they're pretty quick to update stuff up there. And there's actually one of the attachments is the YouTube video, which is like minutes long.
Really?
You can watch the plane come in, you can watch it do the 180, you can see the slides deploy. And that was about where I stopped because I was watching on my phone. I'm like, I'll watch it later. But it was like, you see sparks coming off the engine. And as I understand it, like I guess there were heavy winds in Istanbul yesterday because we have a friend who was also commenting on that. But they attempted a landing. They, as they were landing, I guess a wind must have kicked up because the right wing and the right engine hit the ground. A pilot immediately cranked it up and took the plane back off. But 20 minutes later or so, when they're coming back for approach, they were getting an indicator that the right landing gear was not responding.
Huh.
So I think they damaged the landing gear in that first initial attempt.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at the pictures of it now. I mean, they did some pretty bad damage to the right wing, I think, during the first landing attempt. If you closest to the airplane, there's like chunks just bent up, maybe where the engine kind of bumped back up into the wing.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I mean, it tells you what kind of wings these planes have. I mean,
the thing I read was it did definitely destroy the pylon of the plane.
Wow.
And it was a 332 or a 320?
It was a 320, yeah.
Okay.
And in Star Alliance livery, no less.
Yes, I did notice the Star Alliance livery, that's for sure.
So, I mean, everyone's safe. It sounds like there were no injuries. And, they put out the fire pretty quickly, but crazy. I have to watch the video after we record the show. But what annoys me is that there's some pictures of people off the plane after evacuating, and they have their carry-on luggage with them, which just blows my mind.
But I mean, the pictures, I think we're just in a day and age that everyone captures everything.
Yeah, but I don't care about your cell phone. I care about there's people in the pictures with like suitcases, which means they had to get it from the overhead bin.
I know, it's I don't agree with it. Yeah. But there are times when I'm like, if I ever had to, I might have to grab a bag. Maybe not my suitcase, but my briefcase.
I can understand that. Yeah, like my backpack or something. I would grab that.
Because my passport's in my my passport and everything else is in my bag. So I don't like. I'm looking at the picture now, and I see what you mean about all these pieces of carry-on luggage. I'm like, okay then.
I mean, that means people took the time. It was like a regular deboarding. Like, oh, let's just get off the plane.
Karma would be one of those people getting hit with their luggage on the slide.
Oh, we're terrible,
aren't we?
And see, this morning when I first saw the reports of this, I thought, and we're recording this on Saturday, I thought it was just like an engine fire and they had to do an emergency landing. But now I'm reading this, and it's nuts that they took back off after hitting the ground.
Yeah.
Because you remember that video, I think it was Hamburg, where there was a Lufthansa plane coming in, or maybe it was German wings, and he touched down one wheel and then picked back up, and you could see the wind kind of like pick the plane back up, and
Yes.
It looked like the right wingtip was going to touch the ground. It reminds me of that. I mean, that's kind of what happened.
I had a landing like that, very similar to that, without the actual touching, but the wind picking up at the last moment at Newark years ago.
Really? Just like pick the plane up just real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah, it was 7.5, coming in from LA, and just as we're landing, just as we're that first wheel hits the ground, massive gust, and you suddenly feel the plane just roll right.
Wow.
But since it was a 7.5, it was able to recover a little quicker than the A319 or something.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't just toppled. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, I'm glad everyone's okay. That's good news.
Yeah. I mean, it does speak to volumes that we can take such a large impact and still survive. Like I just saw some of the pictures, and there's holes in the wing on the backside of the wing, so there's a lot of damage that was done in that first landing. But they were able to land, do a go around, land, and still survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And clearly bring their luggage off.
Yeah. So United is on their earnings call this past week. They mentioned that they will be taking delivery of or converting some 787 orders into 777W's orders. So basically, they're turning some of their 787 plane orders into 77W orders. And the reasons that they're doing this, they weren't very clear on the call. And so I don't know. I know Seth has a post about it. But it wasn't very clear why they decided to do it, because they wanted to. I think some of their reasons were they wanted to upgauge certain markets, and probably also replace the 744s at some point, which is interesting.
Well, I mean, I think they have a couple of challenges with the reliability challenge at the 747s, and they can't deploy them in any other markets.
Yeah.
And so I think Newark is one of those markets where they could definitely use some larger planes, but they can't work that into the system.
Yeah. I mean, and it's 10, they're converting 10 787 orders, and the deliveries will start in 2016 of the 777-300s, which is good. And then they're making some other changes too. 11 767-300ERs will get updated, so they'll extend the life, and then they'll give them winglets and some interior modifications. And so it sounds like they're going to keep the 767s around for a while, which originally they didn't. It didn't sound like they were going to. It sounded like they were going to start retiring them as they took the 787s deliveries. So,
but I mean, maybe not. They still have 38 787s on the books.
True.
Right, and they have 50 something 763s today.
True.
So I mean, I think that we're still on track to get rid of the 767s for the most part. I think there's going to be a few that they convert, and I think they alluded to this, but one of the challenges they had this year. They have 35 763s in the fleet right now. But one of the challenges they had this year is a lot of the European 757s were diverting like crazy.
True. They had a lot of problems with winds this year.
And I think they're just getting to a point where it's just operationally, it's just not reliable.
Yeah. So they're upgauging a few markets, right? Like Hamburg, Berlin, Madrid, and Barcelona, I think.
Madrid, Barcelona, and I thought one of the Nordic countries might be getting upgauged.
Oh, wow.
And I suspect something like the really surprising diversion this year was Heathrow Dulles.
Oh, it had to divert? Wow.
Multiple times it had to divert. So I suspect that might be going back to 763 as well.
Yeah. And I think something that wasn't really mentioned in the call was some of these 763, there's kind of two fleets of the 763s. There's the 3 class, and then there's the 2 class that have received kind of an update, and they're used on some different markets, like Houston, Santiago, Chile is one of those. Mm-hmm. And so I think kind of underneath what was being said was these 763s are going to be all converted from the 3 class into the 2 class config. Do you think so, or do you think they're going to keep some of the 3 class?
I don't think they sell a single 3 class. I don't think they sell anything on the 3 class. It has never made sense.
So you think they'll get rid of it in the long run?
Yeah. I mean, there's certain markets that will support a 3 class in the long run. I think Tokyo, Hong Kong. I think those are some. I would say London, but there's so much capacity on London that no one's going to pay for a 3 cabin at this point.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I was looking at was for the Berlin flight, because I was looking to book that one in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
They're selling it as 3 class right now. So I wonder if they'll just do that until they're able to convert them or something like that. It's interesting.
It'd be a great time to buy a first class ticket and then demand downgrade compensation.
They're not cheap, though. So
I believe that applies to redemptions as well.
Oh, good point. Another thing they're doing, which I found interesting, was they're going to reconfigure and transition 10 777-200s currently used in international markets into the domestic network, which is interesting.
But is it?
I'm trying to figure out where they're coming from. I'm trying to figure out which international 777-200s they're converting to domestic service.
So they have, if I remember correctly, 3 different kinds of 777-200s on the legacy United side.
Well, they have the 787As.
They have the 777As, and they have 2 versions of the ERs.
Oh.
And I don't remember what the differences between them are, but they used to be called the XP and the XC configuration, I think, in the old days. Mm-hmm. But basically, one was primarily used for Asia, and one was primarily used for Europe.
So it has like a range. Is it a range thing, you think?
I believe it's a range thing.
Ah. So I was wondering, if they're saying they're going to take these and put them in the domestic network, I thought they're maybe wanting to replace the 764s that are on Dulles and Newark, Honolulu. But in talking to Seth the other day, he doesn't think they have the range to do it with the winds.
On the ERs they do, not on the A's.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
The A's, basically, Chicago, Honolulu is the longest thing they can do on the A's.
Yeah.
Just under 4,000 miles.
Yeah.
But the ERs, they'll definitely be able to do longers.
So I wonder if that's what they're going to do. Oh, here's what Seth says in his post. I just pulled it up. I apologize. We need a producer sometimes. The return of the 10 planes to the domestic configuration shifts all of the non-ERs of that type away from international service. So do they have some A's over there that are doing international service?
Yeah, because a lot of the A's used to do the stuff out of Dulles.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, so they used to have, because they even had Newark Heathrow back in the 90s. Those were all A's. So all the original 777s that were delivered were A's. So I'm like looking at this, like line number 1, 3, 4, 5, 7. Mm-hmm. These are all A's.
Oh.
All the way up to line number 12, so which is 7, so 777 UA, 768, 769. Yeah, a bunch of these are A's.
So it sounds like they're going to take all those, put them in the domestic network, and part of that, the idea behind that, is that they're going to keep the same number of seats but reduce frequencies on certain routes. So I guess they found that running extremely frequent routes wasn't working. So
you mean a 319 at 7 a.m. on Newark, San Francisco wasn't a good idea?
I guess not. So the example they used was Chicago, San Francisco would get one of these. I guess for the morning flight or something.
They currently have 19 777As.
Wow.
And so the other problem they have with the 77As,
mm-hmm.
if you say you have a 77A in Heathrow, you can't sub it to go to San Francisco.
Oh, so if you have any kind of mechanical issue or anything, it's stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing that the range of the 763s that they have is longer than the 77As. Because there's 763s that do Paris, San Francisco.
Yeah, they can do 6,000 miles.
That's incredible.
Well, it's, what the trade-off was cargo capacity. And you have to remember, these were the first ones off the line in 97 or 95.
Oh, wow. So
it was before the ER was introduced because it hadn't even been engineered yet.
So we're talking about 20-year-old planes.
Yeah, these were all delivered in 95.
Wow. Crazy. So let's talk a little bit about some capacity cuts, because this isn't necessarily, the 777s aren't necessarily capacity cuts. It's just kind of an interesting shift in business, the way they're doing business. But there seem to be some capacity cuts across the board, right?
Yeah, I would argue that 777s are a capacity increase because they're going to put more seats on them.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be 343, no question.
But on a side note, I just figured a very interesting statistic out. United is down to only 30 pre-merger 757s on the United side.
Wow. I see one every now and then in Portland.
And like 11 or 13 or something like that is PS, so that means there are under 20 legacy United 757s in the fleet that are not PS.
They're all going away.
Very quickly.
Sadly. Because I loved those planes because you could still get Channel 9 on them. They weren't getting slimline seats. They were terrible and they were beat up. But
I mean, they were workhorses, and your upgrade had a much better chance of clearing.
Yeah, that's true. And I didn't mind 21, the row 21 of that plane.
No.
It was actually really comfortable. It's probably the furthest I've ever sat from my bag was in row 21. So, But some of these other capacity cuts are not just with United. I mean, there's some capacity cuts coming, right? They're cutting the ERJ flying. But also, there's other airlines that are cutting capacity. So Delta's dropping Moscow, which they're saying is seasonal. But you said something funny earlier.
Well, it's always seasonal until they don't bring it back.
Yeah. which I mean, a lot of companies have dropped Moscow. I mean, United dropped Moscow altogether. So it wouldn't surprise me if Delta just says, forget it, let Aeroflot or Transaero take that on.
Well, I mean, I think part of the challenge is no one's, like, clearly right now because of the currency with the dollar being so strong, there's not much tourism money coming in.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges is, a lot of those, people always look at it from a U.S. centric, but, those planes, I would say a lot of those are half U.S. and half someone else.
Yeah. And so if those people aren't traveling, then for whatever reason.
Right. And the fact that Delta is having problems filling a 763, that's a pretty big thing. And the fact that they didn't even go, instead of daily, go down to 5 days or 3 days a week, they just said we're dropping it all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means they're saying there's really no business revenue there.
Yeah. So do you think then, there's some other markets as well. I mean, United's picking back up for seasonal flying. They're picking back up Chicago, Rome, I think, Venice from Newark. And a few others. Do you think that's a smart move, or do you think it's just going to be for the summer and then they're going to drop it again? I mean, I'm guessing they'll drop it again, but do you think it's a smart move for the summer?
Yes, because in the summer, I think I would argue that there's more traffic leaving the U.S. than coming back in.
Gotcha. And
so it's really catering to all the U.S.-bound business. And right now, I mean, if you look at airfares, the U.S. airlines, they're making money like bandits between the low fuel, which, they're projecting low fuel will stay at least through the summer. So those margins are going to stay intact. Fares keep going up. I mean, it's disturbing that right now it's cheaper for me to fly to Stockholm than California.
Yeah. What's the fare to Stockholm right now?
It's like I can buy a ticket for $500 and I'm looking at tickets for our trip in May and I can't find anything that's close to that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's $100 more, $150 more, not a lot more, but I'm like, one is much further and much more exotic than the other.
Yeah, it's crazy.
With a lot less frequency.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, American also has said that they're going to be doing some delays in their deliveries of 787s. So they'll delay delivery of 4 of them till 2017, and then another one until 2018, and that they're going to cut capacity in 2016 by about 0.6%. While forecasts for 2015 capacity are up about 2% compared to 2014.
So what I think, and United is doing this, and American as well, a lot of their capacity reductions are coming from the retirement of 50-seat jets.
Yeah, yeah.
That is really because there are more and more of these companies are introducing the 75 seats, the E175s in particular. Yeah. So those are gaining a lot of traction. So they're doing capacity. They're dropping a bunch of 50-seat jets. They're throwing 70s, but with fewer frequencies.
Yeah. And one of the things that come out of the American call was actually that they expect passenger revenue available seat mile, will fall 4 to 6% this quarter, with the largest impact being in the Pacific and Latin America. I mean, that's crazy. 4 to 6%.
And that's a problem for American because they have a lot of business in South America. So speaking of 175, did you hear about this diversion from Chicago to Buffalo, which was for a flight that was going Chicago-Hartford?
Oh, I saw that, yeah. I mean, I was having a Twitter conversation with some people about it. It was a really strange scenario. I mean, people were saying that there was a loss of cabin pressure, and, you could see from their flight track that they dropped to 10,000 feet really quickly and then landed in Buffalo. But then SkyWest, who was operating the flights, came over and their press release said that it was not a pressure problem, not a decompression problem, but that one of the passengers had become ill and unconscious, and that's why they did it, which I find odd.
Well, but you hear the testimony, like, one of the accounts I read was someone passed out, they gave them oxygen, they were fine, and then the person next to them passed out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, my take is I don't think it was a cabin pressurization thing, but it may have been something, every once in a while you get fumes or something in the air conditioning system or something like that. And there was a report that the AC wasn't working either.
Ah, okay.
So it could just be, there's a couple of different things, right? They have a mixture combination for the amount of oxygen that comes into the cabin.
Yeah.
Maybe that was off.
It could have been. It was just weird. It was a 7,000 foot per minute descent into Buffalo.
Yeah.
Crazy. And it was not a very old plane either.
No, it's a 175. It's a year old. If that, it's no more than a year old.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty. I was really surprised, and that's an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, excellent, absolutely. So some good news coming out of the United camp. They've launched some new coach improvements on long haul flights. They're saying that they're going to give free beer and wine, which is kind of just a return to the old, and a 3-course meal will be served in coach. What do you think about this?
I think it's a change I like. I mean, I think it's a good thing, right? It's just, I'm sure someone finally did the math going, if you give these people enough booze, they'll fall asleep, whereas if you don't, they'll harass the people more.
Yeah.
And become more, and that was one of the age-old adages, is you give out free alcohol on the international flight so people sleep.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think maybe they maybe got a better deal, or their contract expired and they were finally able to negotiate a better deal for alcohol or something?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think that would have much of a play, because the challenge with alcohol on international flights is it's all tied to there's a lot of duty involved, and it goes to the place of origin. So, for instance, a flight leaves Newark and goes to Heathrow. They cannot use that same alcohol coming back.
Gotcha. It's lost.
It's lost. They have to. So that's why sometimes they'll run out of alcohol on international flights, because they try to cater it to the right amount.
Mm-hmm. So there's less loss at the other end.
Right.
Interesting. I mean, it's good news. The 3-course meal stuff, I think it's like they're going to serve. I had it up, and now I can't remember it. Let me find it real quick. I apologize. I think they're going to have like a nuts service, and then they're going to come by with the main, and then they'll have dessert, I believe. Let me pull this up real quick, and I'll tell you what they actually said. CNN Money has the news, the press release. So it will be on June 1st. This is when this starts. Economy meals will be 3 courses, starting with a drink and a snack. Not sure what the snack will be. And then the main meal, and then a dessert. And they're going to change up some of the first course will be either cheese and crackers, bruschetta chips, and then the mains, they're changing up their main options again. Tuscan ravioli, udon noodles with stir-fried vegetables, and they'll all come with salad and bread. So it sounds like they're making some improvements there as well with what they're offering as the mains. So
right,
which is nice. I haven't flown coach long haul in a while. I guess I should. I just don't want to.
Why would you?
So it's good news for people flying long haul coach. I hope that they have more options in the food than just those few things that they mentioned, because it gets old really quick.
It does. I mean, honestly, I'm sure, it might be the same for a few months, but I'm sure as they get used to this whole new service model, they'll have to rotate it around.
Yeah.
Unless they've got vats and vats of that stuff, like the old cheese soup.
Oh man, the cheese soup. So I think the last big story is Priority Pass, and their changes they're making. They're dropping. United Club is actually dropping Priority Pass as an access method. That's how I should say it, right? Because that's what's actually happening here.
United has finally admitted that the clubs are too crowded. That's what's really happening. And they honestly believe that getting rid of the Priority Pass people will help that, which I think someone doesn't look at their numbers properly.
Yeah, I wonder how many Priority Pass access they have a day. I mean, and don't Priority Pass people pay something as well on top of their membership? Like, don't they pay like a small fee to enter the club?
Not for the member themselves, but the additional people.
Gotcha. Okay. So for anyone else coming into the club, I mean, they're getting some kind of fee. It mustn't just not be enough to cover it.
Well, it's funny. I was having this discussion with someone else. So Continental, I don't know how, 7-8 years ago, came out with that Presidential Plus card, which gave you club access. And it was I at least believe it was the first of the kind where you get a full club membership as part of the credit card. But when that came out, they pimped the hell out of that thing. And even after the merger, when they rebranded as a Mileage Plus club card, they pimped the crap out of it.
Yep.
When Delta came out with theirs, they have one, but I've never really seen advertising for it other than when it first came out. They don't really push it, so they've been much more controlled. They too have a lounge problem, but I don't think it's as bad as the United problem. And American did the same thing last year with the 100,000-mile promo. They pushed the crap out of it, and their clubs are getting to be ridiculous too.
Is Americans getting crowded? I mean, yeah. So I mean, this is kind of I think it's the future of the access to the clubs. It'll be premium lounge, premium flyer, premium cabin flyers on long hauls, and credit card holders. That'll be it.
But that's at some point, and that's fine. But how do they balance the capacity challenge?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think about how many long-haul flights you have, say, out of Newark, and how many business class seats are on those, and the flights kind of leave kind of close. They're kind of staggered, especially the European bank, right? From 4:30 till 7:30, there's a flight leaving every 15 minutes.
Well, it's not just the club people. It's all the Star Golds right now.
That's true, too. Yeah, on long-haul coach, yeah.
And think of all the elite floats we've had the last few years, particularly through all these mergers. So, I mean, you figure, on average, I'd say the premium cabin is 20 seats when you factor in the 7.5s to the 777s, and they've got, I'd say 40 or 50 departures, international departures out of Newark between 5 and 8 p.m.
Yep.
So at 40 times, right, it's 800 people. That doesn't even account for the Star Golds.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point, like in the afternoon departure area times, it's not even worth going into the clubs because it is packed, absolutely packed.
It's packed, and it's hot and sweaty.
Yep, exactly. And it just doesn't make any sense. So.
Well, what's even more interesting, though, and this is what surprised me, you go in at 9 a.m., and it's packed.
I used to get there sometimes for work. I would get in there. I'd leave work a little early to try and catch an earlier flight home when I lived in Houston, and I'd get to the club around 2, and it would be relatively empty. But 3 o'clock comes, 3:30, and it's just like a steady flow of people coming in for those afternoon banks.
Well, a lot of that is all the people coming in from Europe to go onward.
Yeah. So it was to the point where people were sitting. There was not an open space, and people are relatively rude in clubs. I've found they'll put their stuff on a seat so you can't sit there. It's like, well, this is the only seat that's open in the entire club. I would like to sit down, and your bag can be on the floor.
Maybe they need to hire bouncers.
That's kind of people that just walk around bag monitoring.
So, speaking of crowded clubs, did you see the tweet from Alton Brown 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
About
that was great. He's like, I didn't realize that. No, I got to sit on the floor. That's wonderful.
Why the hell did I pay for this privilege?
He was not happy about it.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, if I go, I wander in, get my boarding passport to go to the bathroom, get a glass of water, and then I'm generally out.
Yeah.
So, or the free internet.
What do you think about if it works? What do you think about the new food offerings?
I haven't seen them yet.
I had them. I was going through Chicago, and I was at the F Gates, which I'd never been in that club before, and they had them. They had it out.
That's a nice club.
It's nice. It's weird the way the layout is. It's a little strange because you're kind of the TVs are all at the bar, and the bar's kind of noisy, and so it's hard to find kind of a quiet spot somewhere in there. And the bathrooms are kind of weird too.
If you think that's bad, you should go to San Diego.
Oh yeah, I've been to that one.
Yeah. So the F Club, the Seattle Club, and the San Diego Club, they were all built around the same time with and the Boston Club, all around the same time with the same design.
Yeah.
The one thing that Seattle, Chicago, and Boston have are phone booths. San Diego does not. And the problem with San Diego is, if you ever notice, it opens up to a giant atrium that's a food court underneath.
Yeah, and it's just, you hear echoing pretty much the entire time you're there.
You cannot have a phone conversation in that club at all.
Yeah.
And there's no spot to go hide yourself.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I don't even really go to the club. Anyway, the food. I was talking about the food.
Sorry.
I went into the club and was about to get the food. I'm standing there kind of looking at it, and there's a kid that's in front of me, and this is kind of late at night. I mean, I'm catching a 10 o'clock flight, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and this kid sneezes.
Sorry.
Then proceeds to put his hand in the cheese. There's a bowl of cheese, and yet you have to actually work to get your hand in that cheese. Picks around in it and picks one piece out. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm done. I don't need anything else. If there's something to gross you out, that'll do it. And so I didn't even try anything because I didn't want to eat it anymore because it's all uncovered. And people are like, oh, well, you're nuts for that. I just think it's gross. If people are going to let their kids do that.
Well, it's funny because if back in the old days when, one of the things when you compare Continental and United, everything Continental served in the clubs was prepackaged.
Yep.
And it was for that very same reason, that and the spoilage factor.
Yep.
And, when they first merged, they continued that trend and they eventually just gave it up because, I guess it's just a cost thing.
Yeah, or maybe, some of the folks I've talked to have said, oh, well, I don't really care. It's just as dirty as, a dive place or, anywhere else that doesn't have really good food prep. And it's like, well, I expect there to be good food prep at a airline club that I'm paying for. I would hope. I don't know.
You might be assuming too much.
Yeah, we know what happens when you assume.
Yep.
So, but anyway, it's just an interesting. So I still haven't tried the food. I saw it. I just haven't tried it. But yeah, I think that's the show, though. Since two guys are gallivanting around, the Far East and South America, we don't have a ton to talk about.
No? I mean, I think we filled a fair bit of time.
Yeah, I think so, too. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you online?
Primarily Twitter as FozM. And I did register not Mundo Surfer, but there's nothing there on Tumblr.
That's great.
And occasionally on upgrd.com/Foz.
And I'm Steven Seagraves. You can find me on Twitter at sseagraves. I blog occasionally at badice.com. You can find Dots, Lines, and Destinations at moredotsmorelines.com or on Twitter at dotslines. Leave us a comment. Send us a tweet. Whatever you feel like doing. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. And talk to you later, Foz.
Take care.